Incinerators, for every 4 tons that you burn, you get 1 ton of ash. 90% of the ash is bottom ash, which is toxic, and 10% of the ash is fly ash. That's the ash which is captured in the air pollution control devices. And where do you put this ash? Often the driver for the incinerator is to get rid of landfills, but then you perpetuate landfills because you need the landfills for the ash. In Germany and Switzerland, they put the fly ash into nylon bags into salt mines. In Denmark, they send all the ash to Norway. In Italy, we don't know what they do with it. Then in addition to that, of course, you've got the air emissions. We are concerned about toxic metals. We're concerned about new compounds formed in the burning process, dioxins and furans. And most concern is that these substances, the toxic metals and the dioxins and furans, come out on the surface of tiny particles called nanoparticles. These nanoparticles are so small, they get deep down into the lungs, they can cross the membrane, lung membrane, there's nothing to stop them, into the bloodstream and into every tissue in the body. And this is a relatively new subject, nanopathology, and the incinerators are not regulated for nanoparticles. The size that they regulate is 10 microns, maybe going down to 2.5 microns in Europe. You're regulating cannonballs where the culprits are little grains of sand. And the industry has got no response to this yet. There is no response to what they can do, what the problems are with capturing nanoparticles, what the health problems are of nanoparticles from the incinerator industry. So it's still an experiment with the public's health. But for me, even if you made incineration safe, you would never make it sensible. It simply doesn't make sense to spend so much money destroying resources that we should be sharing with the future. What rubbish! What rubbish! They're not free of pollution. I've made that clear with the nanoparticles. They are a waste of energy. 3 to 4 times as much energy can be saved by recycling and reusing, the composting, the materials in the discard stream than you can get from burning it. Let me give you a couple of examples. Mixed paper. 4 times more energy is saved by recycling mixed paper than burning it to create electricity. PET plastic, PET plastic, which is the plastic of soda bottles, 26 times more energy is saved by recycling this material than burning it. So it's an environmental crime, in my view, to be burning paper and plastics when there's more energy saved by reusing and recycling them. And as far as being good for the economy, what nonsense! They spent 300 million euros on the incinerator in Brescia in northern Italy and created only 80 jobs, whereas the same investment in zero waste, the alternatives, creates thousands of jobs. Incinerators are very bad for the economy. Why? Because there's a lot of money in the short term. The people that build these incinerators put the money in the pocket and they leave. This money leaves your community. Meanwhile, the citizens are going to be paying for this incinerator for 25 years. It takes 25 years of running an incinerator to pay for the capital investment. The electricity you generate is a small part of the payback. The real payback is what it costs the citizens and industry per ton to have their facility burnt in this incinerator. The only thing that incinerators successfully burn is taxpayers' money. But there's money for a few people in it, and of course if it's a corrupt system, then the money can be used to buy the politicians who will go ahead with the incinerator and so on. The level of pollution increases with the level of corruption. The real alternatives to incineration, 1 word, 2 words, zero waste. It sounds idealistic, but in actual fact it is realistic. Nature makes no waste. It's a human invention. We need 3 things for zero waste. We need community responsibility at the back end, and we're getting that across Italy. 2,000 communities with door-to-door collection systems, over 50% diversion, some communities over 60% in 1 year, some communities over 70%, even some over 80%. So community responsibility. But we also need industrial responsibility at the front end. We've got to say to industry, look, if we can't reuse it, if we can't recycle it, if we can't compost it, you shouldn't be making it. And as far as the public is concerned, you shouldn't be buying it. We've all got a part to play in this. And of course, on top of that, we need good leadership. We need good leadership to bring community responsibility and industrial responsibility together, to use the success at the community level to drive industrial participation. And the good news on that front is that some industries are doing it already, trying to get to zero waste, and they're saving money. And it's the same in the community. Zero waste saves money, it creates jobs, creates small businesses, and industries which invest in zero waste also save money, a lot of money. That, in essence, is the zero waste approach. And we don't say zero waste tomorrow or next year. We give ourselves some time. We say zero waste 2020. 12 years you've got to do that, to move to zero waste. And I'm not saying it's simple. There are going to be problems. But the difference between the problems of zero waste and the problems of landfilling and incinerators is that zero waste takes you in the right direction for sustainability. And we have to become sustainable in the 21st century, especially with China and India consuming at the same rate as we are doing. The springboard for zero waste in Italy is porta-a-porta collection systems. Italy's never had door-to-door collection of waste before. It's always been dropped off downtown in big containers. So porta-a-porta is new, it's exciting. As soon as your community starts porta-a-porta, they save money because of the cost of landfilling and incineration. And also they create jobs. You've got to have people organizing this. It takes more effort, more organization, which means more jobs. And of course there's many more jobs using the materials in industry once they are collected. And also it's better for tourism, because instead of these overflowing containers downtown, you have the small containers in front of the house which look attractive. And as far as convenience is concerned, how much more convenient than to have these boxes collected at your house. So Italy is a very important place because they have been less encumbered than, say, Germany and Switzerland and France and Scandinavia and the Netherlands with big incinerators. Their attitude was to build the incinerator first, and now they are trying to recycle and compost around them. But the problem with incineration is you have to feed the monster. And as the things that you want to burn are paper and plastics, these are the things which have the highest market value. So what do? You've got to finance, you've got to pay back the incinerator, so you're forced to make a very hard choice. Do you keep the incinerator going at all costs, or do you go to recycling and composting? But the end result in Europe is that they're recycling and reusing and composting around their incinerators. They can never get to zero because there is this built-in component to destroy resources, whereas in many communities in Italy do not start with incinerators. They can avoid incineration completely. And this, by the way, is a very important message for Eastern and Central Europe, the new members of the common market and so on. The good message for them is if you've got the opportunity not to make the German, Swiss, Scandinavian mistake, you can save all that money and put that money into sustainable businesses and creating a lot of jobs. And again, the key thing for zero waste, the most important thing is it is the key starting point for sustainability on a finite planet. It's growing up. Our civilization has to grow up and has to grow up quickly. And why zero waste is the most important player in sustainability is every single human being on the planet makes waste. So right now, every single human being is part of a non-sustainable way of living on a finite planet. But with good leadership, every single human being on the planet can be part of a move towards sustainability. And I think you already heard from this conference today, there's some very exciting things which happen. People get very creative. And that's one of the reasons I keep coming back to Italy. This is my 34th trip to Italy, 34 times. Why? One is Vino Rosso. The other one is that Italy is the cradle of creativity in Western civilization. And we need a lot of creativity to move from a non-sustainable world to a sustainable world.